how did we get from, blowing the dust out of a plastic cartridge to downloading a brand new game onto our phones in just a few seconds? Well, today we're going to dig into a massive chronicle of video game releases and see if we can map out the absolutely incredible 30-year journey of the gaming industry. So let's just dive right in.
Okay, so right off the bat, as we started digging through all this data, we hit a really weird outlier. 1906, the year the Kellogg Company was founded. Yeah, you heard that right. Kellogg's. Now, this is almost certainly a data entry error, right? Somebody probably confused a company's founding date with the game's release date. It's a great reminder that data can be messy, but honestly, it accidentally raises a fantastic question. Where does the real story of the modern video game industry actually begin? And to answer that, we've got to fast forward, way forward, to a time of, chunky plastic and those old glowing TV screens. All right, let's set the scene. We're in the 1990s, and this was, without a doubt, the age of the console. I mean, this era was all about games you could actually hold in your hand. And the whole industry, it was pretty much dominated by just a handful of giants, and most of them came from one specific part of the world. So check this out. This slide gives us the perfect recipe for a 90s game. You've got Super Sidekicks from 92, and it just checks all the boxes. First, developed in Japan. Second, released as a physical cartridge. And third, made for a very specific piece of hardware. In this case, the Neo Geo. This right here, this is basically the blueprint for how things worked back then. Okay, now let's jump ahead 3 years to 1995. You see the exact same pattern with a game like Majin Tensei 2. Yeah, the console's different. This time it's the legendary Super Nintendo, but the formula? It's identical. It's a physical game from Japan for a specific console. Simple as that. And believe it or not, this trend just keeps going right up to the end of the decade. Look at 1998, we've got Blazing Star. Okay, so the platform is a little different. It's an arcade cabinet, but it's still a physical machine, right? You have to go to it, and the developer is, surprise, surprise, based in Japan. You're seeing the theme here, right? The formula was crystal clear. So let's just break it down. The 90s gaming world ran on a super specific formula. First off, pretty much all the power was in the hands of Japanese developers. Next, games were physical things, cartridges and discs, and they were locked to a single console. And finally, game launches weren't these huge global events like we have today. Nope, they were often localized, which means a game could come out in Japan months, sometimes years, before it showed up anywhere else, if it ever did. But then, the internet showed up, and it didn't just change things a little bit, it kicked off a full-blown digital revolution that completely rewrote the rules for how games were made, sold, and even how we played them. This was the beginning of, pixels without plastic? And wow, this slide just perfectly lays out the difference between the two eras. On one side, you've got Wario's Woods from 94, a physical cartridge for the NES, sold in stores, released only in Japan to start. And then on the other side, Medieval Engineers from 2015. It's a digital game for Windows, released to the entire world all at once through Steam, and not even as a finished game, but in early access. I mean, the entire business model was just completely turned on its head. And you know what? This whole revolution wasn't just happening on PCs. In 2009, a game called Rogue Touch shows up on a device that, it wasn't even really meant for gaming at all. The iPhone. And just like that, the most disruptive, game-changing new console on the market was the phone that was already sitting in everyone's pocket. And that just blew the floodgates wide open. Suddenly, this digital world created a whole new ecosystem of places to get games. You had PC stores like Steam, of course. You had the mobile app stores for iPhone and Android. You could even play games right in your browser on sites like itch.io. Heck, even consoles got in on the action with indie channels like Xbox Live Indie Games. The wall you had to climb to make and sell a game, it basically just crumbled to dust. Now, look, this kind of massive technological shift, it's never a peaceful transition. As the ground was literally shifting under the industry's feet, the business of making games became this super high-stakes game itself. And in that kind of volatile new world, there were some very clear winners and some very big losers. I mean, just take a look at this timeline. It tells a story. You've got these old-school companies like Sierra trying to rebrand to stay relevant. You've got founders of huge studios like Shiny Entertainment just resigning. And then you have developers like Iron Lore that just had to close up shop completely. And then the real shocker, Midway Games. I mean, these guys were titans of the arcade era. And in 2009, they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And then you fast forward, and you see a modern studio, Saber Interactive, getting acquired in 2020 for a huge amount of money. It just shows you the new guard had arrived. You know, this quote from Midway's bankruptcy announcement is actually fascinating. It really shows you just how huge and complicated these companies had become. Think about it. Even while the main US company was totally collapsing, its branches in other countries were trying to just carry on like normal. This was a really messy, painful time for the old guard of the industry. And this right here, this really puts the story in a nutshell. You've got Midway, founded way back in 1958. They couldn't adapt to the digital world, and they went bankrupt in 2009. Then you have Saber Interactive, a company literally born in the new millennium. They didn't just survive this shift, they thrived in it, which eventually led to their massive acquisition. It is the perfect example of that idea of creative destruction in action. Okay, so after all of that chaos, all that disruption, what does the world of gaming actually look like today? Like, where are games even being made anymore? And what are we playing them on? Well, the data actually gives us a really clear picture. So if you just look at the raw number of games coming out these days, the #1 platform probably isn't what you'd guess. It's the PC, by a long shot, all powered by those digital stores like Steam and itch.io. Right behind that, you've got mobile and browser games. And the traditional consoles, the ones that used to be the entire market, well, now they're a much smaller slice of the pie when you look at the total number of new releases. Okay, but where are all these games actually coming from? This chart is, frankly, incredible. The biggest slice of this pie, it's not a country, it's worldwide. Because of digital distribution, when a game comes out now, it often comes out for the whole world on day one. Don't get me wrong, Japan and the US are still huge players, but the industry doesn't really have a single center anymore. So really, if you had to boil down the last 30 years of video game history into just one sentence, this is it. The story of gaming is a shift from made in Japan to made for the world. All right, so let's wrap this all up. What are the big things you should take away from this whole 30-year journey? First, the industry completely shifted from selling physical things in boxes to providing digital services. That change made game development a global thing, something way more people could get into. But remember, that transition was rough. It was a constant cycle of huge failures and even bigger successes. And for us, the players, the end result is just this incredible explosion of choice in what we can play and where we can play it. Which, leaves us with one last big question to think about. This journey has changed the landscape so much that our old definitions are kind of starting to fall apart. I mean, with games on our phones and our web browsers being made by just one person or by massive global corporations, what is a video game even going to mean in, say, 2026? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this.